Hello, and welcome to the class of Professor Elizabeth. Today I will be discussing the integumentary system, skin that is. I'll be using a model to aid me in describing what the different parts are and do. First, I will discuss the hypodermis, which is modeled here by the lowest layer, that is gray clay. The hypodermis is the deepest section of the skin. The hypodermis refers to the fat tissue below the dermis that insulates the body from cold temperatures and provides shock absorption. Fat cells of the hypodermis also store nutrients and energy. The next layer I will discuss is the dermis, which is represented here by the white clay right above the hypodermis. The dermis is located between the hypodermis and the epidermis. It is a fibrous network of tissue that provides structure and resilience to the skin. While dermal thickness varies, it is on average about 2 millimeters thick. The major components of the dermis work together as a network. This mesh-like network is composed of structural proteins like collagen and elastin, blood and lymph vessels, and specialized cells called mast cells and fibroblasts. These are surrounded by a gel-like substance called the ground substance, composed mostly of glycosaminoglycans. The ground substance plays a critical role in the hydration and moisture levels within the skin. The next layer is the epidermis, which is represented by the brown clay here on top. The epidermis is the outermost layer of the skin. Categorized into 5 horizontal layers, the epidermis actually consists of anywhere between 50 cell layers in thin areas to 100 cell layers in thick areas. The average epidermal thickness is 0.1 millimeters, which is about the thickness of one sheet of paper. The epidermis acts as a protective shield for the body and totally renews itself approximately every 28 days. Next, we will discuss hair, which is the black thing sprouting out of the epidermis and sitting here in the dermis. Hairs are characteristics of mammals. The function of hair includes protection, regulation of body temperature, and facilitation of evaporation of perspiration. Hairs also act as sense organs. Next, I will be discussing the sebaceous or oil glands. The sebaceous glands are absent from the palms and the soles. They are simple alveolar glands that form lobes in the dermis, generally in between an erector pili and its hair follicle. The basal cells of the gland proliferate, accumulate fat droplets, and are excreted as sebum through a short, wide duct into the lumen of the hair follicle. Sebum keeps the stratum corneum, the outermost layer of the epidermis, pliable, and in cold weather conserves body heat by hindering evaporation. So, oil glands secrete oil into the hair, and it also helps our skin remain pliable and warm. Next, I will be discussing the erector pili muscle, which is represented by this right here. The erector pili muscles are small muscles attached to hair follicles in mammals. Contraction of these muscles causes the hairs to stand on end, known colloquially as goosebumps. Each erector pili is composed of a bundle of smooth muscle fibers which attach to several follicles called a follicular unit and is innervated by the sympathetic branch of the autonomic nervous system. The contraction of the muscle is therefore involuntary. Stresses such as cold, fear, etc. may stimulate the sympathetic nervous system and thus cause contraction, but the muscle is not under conscious control. Contraction of the muscles has a number of different purposes. Its principal function in the majority of mammals is to provide insulation. Air becomes trapped between the erect hairs, helping the animal retain heat. The second to last thing I will talk about is the eccrine sweat gland, represented by this purplish blob here. In the actual skin, it is more tubular and circular, as if it were a twisted Twizzler. But obviously, that didn't really work out with this model. Anywho, the eccrine glands are sweat glands that are not connected to hair follicles. They function throughout life by responding to elevated body temperature due to environmental heat or physical exercise. These glands are common on the forehead, neck, and back, where they produce profuse sweating on hot days and when a person is physically active. They also are responsible for the moisture that may appear on the palms and soles when a person is emotionally stressed. And the last thing I will talk about are these yellow S's you see scattered about the white area or the dermis of the model. These are called sensory nerve fibers or sensory neurons, as neurons are organs that pass on sensory impulses to the central nervous system. The sensory nerves in the epidermis serve to sense and transmit heat, pain, and other noxious sensations. That is all for this lesson today. Thank you for joining me.